Welcome to the Fear and Greed Afternoon Report for Friday, the 30th of June, 2023. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 finished the financial year with a whimper, closing up just a touch to 7,203 points, meaning the market jumped about 10% for the financial year. There was very little movement today. In fact, the best performing sector, technology, rose just 0.8%, while the worst performing sector index, at least, consumer staples, fell 0.4%. Xero and REA Group finished up more than 1%. They're about the best of the lot. The big banks were mixed, so too the retailers. Wasn't much corporate news around, although Link Group said its contract with superfund Hester had not been renewed. Its share price tumbled 14% as a result, definitely the worst performer of the top 200. Story number 2, dozens of flights were cancelled or delayed along the East Coast today due to a severe shortage of air traffic controllers that led to the effective closure of airspace to the south of Brisbane. A Qantas spokesman said 100 flights had been delayed across the group and 10 services were cancelled because of the airspace restrictions. Virgin Australia was also hit hard. Flights to and from Brisbane, the Gold Coast and Ballina were forced to operate around the uncontrolled airspace, which added time and distance. The airspace restrictions occurred from 6 a.m. this morning to 1:30 p.m, officially due to short-term, unplanned air traffic controller leave impacting en route airspace between Sydney and Brisbane. A spokesperson for Air Services Australia said the group continues to invest in its workforce across the country, including by recruiting and training new air traffic controllers nationwide. Just weren't enough today. It's the latest in a long series of issues arising from air traffic controller shortages, much to the frustration of airlines, airports, and, of course, passengers. Story number 3, a 4.6 magnitude earthquake hit regional Victoria this morning, with thousands of people feeling the early morning tremor. Geoscience Australia said the earthquake struck at 1:32 a.m. near Rawson, a small town around 150 kilometres east of Melbourne. More than 7,000 people had reported feeling the earthquake by 6 a.m, including many residents in Melbourne's eastern suburbs. The earthquake is the second to hit the region in a month, following a 3.8 magnitude earthquake in Melbourne's northwest in late May. Story number 4, the lack of support outside the National Disability Insurance Scheme for children with disabilities is undermining the sustainability of the scheme, with parents pressured to present the worst versions of themselves and their children to get funding. So says the interim report by the NDIS Review. NDIS Review co-chair and architect of the National Disability Insurance Scheme, Bruce Bonyhady, said the absence of services for disabled Australians outside the NDIS created a system that was deeply unfair. That's according to a report in The Australian. The review's interim report, handed down today, also identified a lack of workforce quality and problems with the culture of the National Disability Insurance Agency as key challenges to the $40 billion a year scheme. The interim report noted that the definition of reasonable and necessary support, which the NDIS Act says the scheme must provide to participants, is unclear. And finally, story number 5, major French cities experienced a third night of riots as President Emmanuel Macron fights to contain mounting unrest triggered by the fatal police shooting of a teenager of Algerian and Moroccan descent during a traffic stop. About 40,000 police officers were deployed across France overnight, nearly 4 times the numbers mobilised on Wednesday night. But there are few signs that government appeals for a de-escalation in the violence will quell the widespread anger. In Nanterre, the working-class town on the western outskirts of Paris, where a 17-year-old boy was shot dead on Tuesday, protesters torched cars, barricaded streets, and hurled projectiles at police following a peaceful vigil. National Police said on Thursday night that officers faced new incidents in Marseille, Lyon, Toulouse, and Lille, including fires and fireworks. The shooting has fed long-standing complaints of police violence and systemic racism inside law enforcement agencies, from rights groups, and within the low-income, racially mixed suburbs that ring major cities in France. That's it for the afternoon report for Friday, the 30th of June, 2023. Michael Thompson, Adam Lang, and I will be back tomorrow morning with a weekend edition of Fear and Greed. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.